everyone, I'm Mike Settele, the founder of Settele Tutoring, and in this lesson I'm going to talk about one of the most common problems that people have on the SAT. A very common weakness is getting through the hard modules on time. In this lesson, I'm going to specifically talk about the reading pacing. I will have a separate lesson on the math pacing because the strategy is slightly different, but this is something that a lot of people have as a weakness. I will show you some tips to speed yourself up and to just maximize the score if you can't finish in time. Now, I do want to stress that this is about the hard module specifically. If you are struggling to get through the first reading module, that might be a slightly different problem. The stuff I will talk about here will help, but honestly, at that point, you might just have weak reading comprehension and some fundamentals that need to be worked on. So that might be a topic for another lesson, but if that is where you're struggling, you just got to go back to learning grammar rules and vocabulary and strengthening your reading skill before you're going to really be able to tackle the hard module in the time limit. So let's talk about what each module contains and how we're going to use that structure to our advantage. The modules are always going to be in the same order of questions: vocabulary, passages, grammar, transitions, outlines. I don't know why that is the order. I think that's just like historically how they've done it on other versions of the SAT, but that is not the order you're going to go if you are trying to maximize your points and get through the hard module in time. The thing that I recommend is starting with the grammar questions. So as soon as you enter the hard module, first thing you're gonna do is skip all the way to about question 15. That's usually where the first grammar question is, but it might be 14, might be 16, just somewhere in there, and then start answering those. These should be quick. We really wanna lock these points in as fast as possible. Then after you've done all the grammar, you're gonna go to the transitions, which come right after them, and then the outlines, which are the last part of the test. Those are those ones with the bullet points. I'll talk more about why we want to do this first, but the short answer is that these are the easy questions. Get them out of the way, get them out of the way fast, lock in points. We definitely don't want to be running out of time with easy questions left. So at least if we do the easy ones first, we know we've already locked in a bunch of points. So it's really important to do that. Then we can go back to the front and do the vocabulary questions. I'll talk about how to speed yourself up if those tend to slow you down as well. And then finally, we're going to save the passages for last. These are the hardest questions. These are the most frustrating questions, the most time-consuming questions. And yes, you will probably get a couple of these wrong, even if you have all the time in the world to do them. They're difficult. So what we're going to do is by saving them for last, if we do run out of time, then at the very least, we are running out of time on questions that we might have gotten wrong anyway. So this is a really important thing to do to maximize our score. And it does mean that, yes, we might be sacrificing a couple of hard passage questions for the sake of getting more time and more confidence with everything else. This is very, very important to maximize your score. I don't think you need to do this in the first module, but if you want to set that tone and get in the habit of doing it, then by all means, it's certainly not going to hurt. But most people do have enough time in the first module to go back and check their work and spend more time on the passages. It's the hard module where, yes, you might just completely run out of time, and we don't want that to happen, or at least we don't want that to happen in a way that's going to be catastrophic. So let's talk about what we can do for each different type of question to help ourselves kind of move along and set the right pacing. First, the grammar, transitions, and outlines, we're doing those first, and I'm going to just lump them all together because it's kind of all the same. Basically, you're looking at 45 seconds per question. Really don't want to get more than a minute for sure. And that means about 10 minutes total for these questions. It's about half the test. And so it's a fast half. You're going to do it really, really confidently because if you've been studying your grammar rules, if you've memorized the transition words and you know how to play the game on those outline questions, these should be really, really fast. And like I said before, we are prioritizing locking in points on the easy questions for the sake of maximizing the overall score. The reason a lot of people lose like 30 or 40 needless points on the SAT is they either run out of time and can't finish these easy outlines or transitions at the end, or they have to rush through them and they make careless mistakes when they should have been able to get those questions right. So by doing these questions first, we are protecting against that. We're playing a good defense and starting off strong rather than risking these kind of easy points later on. We only have a few minutes left on the clock. Though I will say, like I keep saying, these are easy questions. And in order to get a very good reading score, 700 plus, certainly a 750 or better, you're gonna need to be perfect in these questions. That means no mistakes at all. Occasionally, there might be a very hard transition question, but really, you don't want to lose any points here. Like I said, you are going to lose points in the passage questions. That they're so hard and so hard to get through that we're going to need to kind of build a little bit of a buffer over there. Here, we need to be confident and we need to be quick. So if you are taking practice tests and you are losing even 1 or 2 questions here, you're putting a 700 plus in jeopardy. This is not where you want to be losing points. So in terms of improving your score, these are good questions to start with to make sure that you don't lose points unnecessarily. Then we get to the vocabulary questions. We're going to remember, go start at grammar, then go back to the front after we've done all the other stuff. There are a couple ways to speed up here. One is just learn new words, right? If you know more vocabulary words, then there's less doubt as you're reading the sentences and reading the choices. So start studying words. I now have a vocab page on my website that I highly recommend you check out. I will make a separate video on just how to get better at these vocabulary questions in general. But another piece of this is knowing when to quit. Even if you study lots of words, you probably will have words you didn't study and they might appear on the test. It's just luck of the draw. But if you are staring at a question, we are down to 2 answers and you understood the sentence, you understood what needs to go in the blank, you just don't know what those words mean. Stop staring at it. Know when to quit. Move on. There's no fairy godmother that's going to come down and whisper the definition in your ear. So you need to just accept that you're going to have to guess randomly from whatever's left and move on and use that time on a question where you can actually solve the question, not something where you're just kind of guessing, I guess, more by vibes. I don't even know. Just go with your gut on these kinds of questions. Similarly, that's going to happen with the passage questions. So the first thing we need to be comfortable with is skipping around. The passage questions are not in order of difficulty, so it's not like the easy ones come first and the later ones are by the grammar. No, no, no. It is kind of just jumbled based on the type of question that it is. Some of them tend to be easier than others in terms of the overall way the question is asked, but it's hard to say. So this is mostly about what you personally feel comfortable working on. My preference is I definitely make sure I do all of the main idea, main purpose questions, anything that's about like the underlying function of a sentence, those I like to do. I like to do the ones that are the illustrate the claim. Those are really good too. They're usually very fast, not a lot of reading at all. And I actually like those logic questions, which choice best logically completes the passage. Those tend to be easier than they look. So those are really good to start targeting when the time is running low. The things I don't like are the double text questions. Those can just be time consuming because there's so many things to read. I also don't like support and weaken questions. Those ones about supporting an argument, those tend to have a little bit more thought involved. And the graph and chart questions also tend to be very, very time consuming because you have to balance the chart, the passage, and the choices. And especially in the hard module, those can be tough. But that's just me. One thing I would definitely recommend never doing is skipping a poetry question. People always think those are really hard, but because there's a lot less to read and you can usually just go by connotations, positives and negatives, those tend to be easier points than most people think. On the other hand, science experiments can also be very time consuming because there's a lot to understand and a lot of foreign words. So, pick whatever you feel most confident on. The point here is we're trying to maximize the questions that we get right. So don't waste 5 minutes on one you might get wrong if there's ones that you might get right coming up right after it. So you got to be able to skip around. Just remember that when the timer is running out, don't leave anything blank. Make sure you put an answer for every question because there's no guessing penalty. And that gets us to the main point of all of this. You kind of just have to accept that you won't finish. The test is designed to be very, very difficult. The hard module especially is very difficult to finish. And I know why that is difficult for a lot of students to accept is they're used to, many of you are, high achieving students. You're the best in your class. You have great grades. You're always the first one done with a test in school. You have tons of time, half the class period, to check your work. Well, this is not that kind of test. The SAT is different. And so because you don't normally have that kind of pressure, now suddenly you never had to cope with that. And that really throws people off. They get nervous. And so you cannot let that get to you. You have to just accept the fact that you might have to guess randomly on 2 or 3 passage questions. And if you accept that, then I think it frees you up mentally to worry about everything else. And if you get everything else right and have to guess randomly on 2 or 3 questions, you still can get a 770, 780. That's a great score, and no college is going to care about a 780 versus an 800. So it makes sense to sacrifice a couple of questions if it means getting everything else right and having the time to really prove those other answers, make sure you're not making careless mistakes, falling into traps, all of those things. And this is how I think of the test. It is something that you're going to just need to get used to. Maybe you will get lucky and you will have plenty of time to finish, and maybe you can even check a couple things over, but you shouldn't count on that You should count on running out of time and approach the test from that perspective. And then anything better than that is good luck. That's all. It's what it is. And you can accept that. If you can accept that, I think you will do better overall because you'll be less nervous about the test. For some more help on the pacing, I've got lots of resources on my website, my YouTube. I highly recommend you check out some of the things that I have for the different strategies. Of course, using different strategies in the reading section, like dumb summaries, that is going to help you speed up. It'll give you the confidence not to worry about all the details in the passages. I also recommend that you use my videos whenever you review a practice test. You will see how I think about the questions and how I can use strategies to be faster, but especially if you are just trying to get that big picture approach to pacing. I recommend the walkthrough videos that I have of tests 4, 5, and 6. Basically, I had never seen these tests before, and I just took them blind, just like you did. And in one of them, I remember running out of time on the reading. So you will see what I did in that situation. And so only watch those videos if you've taken those tests. But if you have, then you can see how I handle the same questions that you saw, and you can actually see why maybe I'm able to move faster and where you're losing time. So those are a great resource. If you have any other questions about the pacing on the reading section, please put them in the comments. If you found this helpful, give me a like, give me a subscribe. But remember, once again, I am Mike Settele, founder of Settele Tutoring. And when it comes to your scores, don't settle for less, Settele for more. Thanks for watching.